So work about this approach to non-commutative supergeometry involves also several collaborators listed here. Okay, so first let us give some physical motivations to why considering non-commutative supergeometry. So the first ingredient is supergeometry, and it deals with commuting and also anti-commuting variables, so for example Grassmann variables. And it gives Z2-gridded commutative algebras. Okay? And it's useful in physics to modelize, for example, fermionic series, but also ghost in gauge theory, so within the BRST formalism, and also, of course, supersymmetric theories. And okay, there is no need here to emphasize why non-commutativity is useful to modelize quantum effects. But you can see it in, for example, in the Heisenberg uncertainties inequalities, also in quantum Hall effect, and so on. And if now you want to put these two ingredients together, it should give non-commutative supergeometry. And okay, at the very basic level, it should deal with Z2-gridded but non-commutative algebras now. Okay, so you remove this commutativity condition. And it should be useful to describe, for example, fermionic series or supersymmetric theory on non-commutative spacetime, but also, I hope, to modelize BRST formalism in non-commutative setting, and what is unexpected applications also to renormalization of certain quantum field theory on non-commutative spacetime. Okay, so first I will give a very brief survey about what is non-commutative supergeometry, its basic object, and so on. And then we will see some examples. So the first example will be the deformation quantization of superspaces. Okay, and then we will see also an example of what could be the symmetries in non-commutative supergeometry, so quantum supergroups, but endowed with some topology. So these are examples of the theory described here. And finally, we will go to an application to quantum field theory to interpret, to give one possible interpretation of the Grosse-Wilkenaar model. Okay. So first, let us start with some recall about supergeometry. Okay? There are several approaches to classical supergeometry, but okay, in the concrete approach, it consists to replace the field R by just a real supercommutative algebra. So this will be denoted by curved A in the rule talk. It is Z2-gridded, and okay, you can think at it just as to be real plus nilpotence, and the supercommutativity condition reads as here. So it involves a sign with degree of A, degree of B for homogeneous elements. Okay, and now, what is a superspace in this framework? It is of dimension mn. It is just the data of m commuting variables and n anti-commuting coordinates. Okay, with a body map, which is a projection, and it drops all nilpotent. So there is nothing here anymore, but here there is only the R part. Okay. One wants to consider supermanifolds in this context. So first, we have to introduce the De Witt topology. U as a subset of Rmn is called open if its body is open. So its body, it's a usual subset of Rm. So it's open in the usual sense. And U is saturated by nilpotence. Okay? So you see that this topology is not at all Hausdorff, but it's useful to define in this context supermanifolds. Okay? Then to define supermanifolds, one needs also a notion of smoothness, and here it will be very trivial to define this. So a super function is called smooth if if x denotes the even variables and psi the odd variables, if the function can be expanded along odd variables, psi, and psi I will be just product of psi I. And since these psi are odd coordinates, they are anti-commuting, so they are nilpotents, and the sum is finite. It's over the subspaces, the subsets, sorry, of 1n. Okay, so here you have a finite sum, and each coefficient, it depends on a usual coordinate of Rm, and you require that they are smooth. Okay. So now you have a notion of smoothness on Rmn, and okay, we can define a supermanifold. This is a standard notion of dimension mn to be a topological space endowed with a collection of charts. So in Rmn, these charts are homeomorphism with respect to this topology and to the De Witt topology, such that the transition superfunctions associated to the charts are smooth in the sense we defined before. And you have also an associated notion of body, and the body is required to be a usual manifold. Okay. This is the definition of supermanifold, but we will work with a subclass which are trivial supermanifolds. So these are supermanifolds with a global odd coordinate system. It means that you can see trivial supermanifold just as direct products of usual one and of pure odd superspace, so R0n. Okay, so maybe. So a trivial supermanifold can be written just as something like this. Okay. For trivial supermanifolds, the set of smooth superfunction is has a very nice structure. It's just a tensor product of the smooth function on the body, and also the smooth superfunction on R0n, which is just a finite algebra. Okay, this is not true if the supermanifold is not trivial, but this is true just locally. Okay. Now we will do some computation, so we need some conventions. If the supermanifold has a global odd coordinate system given by the coordinate psi, we will denote the product of two psi, so psi I, psi g. If I and g are disjoint subsets of 1n, it gives psi I union g and some sign. The sign will be denoted by epsilon. And of course, you can, this is graded commutative, so you can exchange, but you obtain this sign. Okay? So these are just conventions. And now, we need also a notion of integration on odd variables, okay? And this will be a Berezin integration. Berezin integration, if you expand the function along odd variables, you just take the upper coefficient, okay? So this is the coefficient for the rule set 1n. So now we have all the conventions and the tools. And we can go to the philosophical level of what is a non-commutative supergeometry. So for a supermanifold M, we have seen that the smooth superfunctions is just a Z2 graded commutative algebra. And in the Gelfand-Eimark point of view, we know that topological spaces are associated to commutative C-star algebras. Okay, and if we want, okay. And now, non-commutative C-star algebras are considered just as associated to some non-commutative spaces. Sorry. And in this setting, non-commutative superspaces can just be seen as associated to non-commutative Z2 graded algebras. Okay, so this is very easy as a philosophy. And okay, these are purely algebraic objects, and of course you can define tools of this object. Just at the algebraic level, it has been you can define such geometrical tools like vector fields, analog of vector fields, the RAM forms, connection, curvature, K-theory, in the very general context of graded ring theory. And we did it in a very particular setting of derivation-based differential calculus. So there are analogs of such things, but in this non-commutative superspace setting. But we know that in non-commutative geometry, topology and analysis is very important, of course, to define non-commutative geometry, so that there are also analytical objects called Hilbert superspaces and C-star superalgebras, and I will go back to this to the definition of this object just after. Okay, and finally, quantum groups are symmetries of non-commutative spaces, and so what could be symmetries of non-commutative superspaces? They are quantum supergroups, so Z2 graded Hopf algebras, and here we want in this setting to undo such Hopf algebras with topology. Okay, so if you don't have any question, we can go to the definition, so to the details, to the definition of the first object, Hilbert superspaces. Okay, so Hilbert, and I will motivate this definition after on examples. So Hilbert superspace, it is a complex Z2 graded space, okay, with this grading, endowed with a super Hermitian scalar product. Okay, it means that the Hermiticity conditions involve a sign depending on degree of the element, and such that there exists a unitary, almost involutive endomorphism G. And if you compose this scalar product with G, it gives a Hermitian positive definite scalar product, and you assume that H is complete. Okay. So one comment: this Hilbert superspace has a fixed super Hermitian scalar product, but this super Hermitian scalar product is for algebraic properties, but it does not give any topology. Okay, of course, this is not positive definite, and since you need a topology, you just assume that there exists some Hilbert space structure, but this Hilbert space structure is not canonical. But there is a nice result which tells you that the Hilbert topology of H is independent of the choice of G. Okay, so if you pick two different endomorphism G, you obtain the same topology. So there is no canonical Hermitian positive definite scalar product, but there is a canonical topology. Yes, it will be just after. Okay. Yes, but okay, you have two cases. Yes, you have parity 0 and 1. Okay, n is a Z2 number. And you assume that the inner product is of degree 1. So if you want to restrict to H0, n should be 0. Otherwise, this is a trivial scalar product. Okay, but yes, so Hilbert spaces are particular examples of Hilbert superspaces. If you have a pure odd superspace, it's like a symplectic structure, yes. Yeah. And so, now an example. If you just consider X a trivial super manifold of dimension Mn, then you can form the standard inner product. Okay. Here you have the X, the body of X here should have some density or volume form, and here the measure is just this volume form and the Berezin integration. But then you have a notion of inner product, and this inner product is not Hermitian positive definite, and that's the motivation of this definition. It is super Hermitian. Okay? But you can find a G here, very easy, because functions on the trivial supermanifolds are analogs of Durham forms, and then you can take the analog of the Hodge operation associated to any psi I, a psi complementary of I in the set 1n with a sign, and this satisfies all these conditions. And if you compose this standard, super Hermitian scalar product with G, it gives you exactly a Hermitian positive definite scalar product. No. For the moment, no. But, okay, another comment, maybe. This is also inspired from Krein spaces, if you know. So, Krein spaces, but on Krein spaces, you don't have a degree for the superhermeticity. But it's very analog, and also the Hilbert topology does not depend on the choice of the operator relating the Hermitian non-positive definite inner product and the positive definite scalar product. Okay, so you have a notion of Hilbert superspace with one fixed super Hermitian scalar product and another one, but not fixed scalar product. So there is of course, adjoints with respect to the positive definite scalar product, but there is also another notion, which is called superadjoint, and it is just the adjoint with respect to this super Hermitian scalar product. Okay. One comment, I should say, H is endowed with its canonical Hilbert topology, so there exist bounded operators on H. So, and then to each bounded operator, there exists a superadjoint with respect to this super Hermitian scalar product. Okay. Here there is a sign for convenience. We will see why later. Okay. So this is a simple structure, and then we arrive to the structure of C-star superalgebras. Okay. First, we need a notion of superinvolution. A superinvolution on a Z2 graded algebra. It is just an antilinear map, okay, of degree 0, which is involutive, and here the compatibility with the product involves a sign with degree of A, degree of B, okay. And what is the motivation of this definition? It is because the superadjoint with this sign exactly satisfies such axioms, okay. So now we will consider superinvolutions like this, and we arrive to the definition of a C-star superalgebra. It is just a Z2 graded algebra endowed with a superinvolution and faithfully represented here on a Hilbert superspace. So represented, it means that the product of A corresponds to the composition of operator, and also the superinvolution on A will correspond to the superadjoint. Okay, so this is a star or DAG algebra morphism faithfully, and you assume that A for the operator norm topology on B of H should be closed. Okay, so it means you can see that C-star superalgebra is not in general a C-star algebra. Okay. These are just subalgebra of B of H, closed for the operator norm topology, but not closed for the right involution, but only for the superinvolution. Okay, so there could be some examples, and there are some examples we will see, where you consider C-star superalgebras, so closed for the superinvolution, but not closed for any involution associated to the C-star norm. is quite strange. But here, okay, we have an example. So we consider also a trivial supermanifold X, and the super function L infinity form a C-star superalgebra just for the complex conjugation, leaving the Xi variables invariant. Okay, so like this. But since they are graded commutatives, they satisfy this condition, and this is exactly this condition. Okay, and this algebra is represented by multiplications. Okay, very as usual on the Hilbert superspace here. Okay, so it seems maybe a very complicated definition for something very simple, but we'll see that in a deformation quantization case, this will be useful. Okay, so. Oh, that's a very good question. So here you see that indeed this is a concrete definition, okay, by representation. For the moment, there is no abstract definition, and if yes, if you look at the norm of A dagger A, this is sometimes 0. In this case, this is 0. So there is no C-star property with respect to the super involution. There is, of course, one for the right involution, but the algebra is not closed for the right involution. So this is a problem. Okay, so some results concerning these objects. So we have introduced two objects, and these are good categories in the sense that there exist well-defined direct sum, tensor products, morphisms. Okay. One application of Hilbert superspace is for harmonic analysis of some classical supergroups. So, for example, for the Heisenberg supergroup and the Poincaré supergroup in dimension 2, if you look at the Kirillov-Orbis method, the Kirillov-Orbis method from a co-adjoint orbit, you produce Hilbert space usually and an induced representation. Okay, but here, if you consider a co-adjoint orbit of a Heisenberg or Poincaré supergroup, and you apply the Kirillov-Orbis method, you produce canonically a Hilbert superspace structure and an induced representation, which is not unitary with respect to the Hermitian positive definite scalar product, but which is super unitary with respect to the super Hermitian one. Okay, so this is strange. And for the Heisenberg supergroup, at least in low dimension for the moment, because it is work in progress, we have the Stone-Feynman theorem for the Heisenberg supergroup, but of course concerning the super unitary dual of this group, so representations that are super unitary. And we think that the Hilbert superspace and super unitary representation should be very useful for harmonic analysis on supergroups. Okay, another example concerns non-formal deformation quantization, and for the moment it's done for the Heisenberg supergroup also and the Poincaré supergroup. So with many collaborators, we constructed a star product for these two supergroups on coadjuvant orbits. Also a quantization map, which is like the Weil quantization map. And for the Heisenberg supergroup, we have even a pseudo-differential calculus. Pseudo-differential operators calculus, yes. With the Calderon-Vaillancourt theorem also. And, okay, even there is a C-star universal deformation formula, at least for the Heisenberg supergroup, but for the Poincaré supergroup, it's work in progress. So, what is a universal deformation formula? It means that, okay, in the non-graded case, so if a group acts on a C-star algebra, okay, if the, for example, R2n acts on a C-star algebra, Riffel proved that the star product, the Moyal product, allows to deform the structure of the C-star algebra into another C-star algebra. Okay? This is a classical result of Riffel. And here, if G is the Heisenberg supergroup acting on a C-star superalgebra, then this deformation quantization allows also to deform the structure, so the product and also the norm of the C-star superalgebra into a new C-star superalgebra and actually a family of C-star. What is super of G? Yes? Yes, you have. Yes, okay. Yes, we will see in details. I didn't wrote here details, but acted, it means that there are some axioms, regularity axioms of the action. Okay, and one axiom is that it acts as a homomorphism, so it means that there is the degree is preserved. Yes? Yes. You mean the context of deformation quantization?
Yeah, all this context, because I see that most of your examples are just given supermanifolds.
Yes.
And also your definition of supermanifolds is a little bit too narrow. People usually assume it's not like, well, vibration, but they're like a log of variation. So that the choice of the body is not significant.
In the real case, so if the body field is real, there is a correspondence between different approaches to supergeometry, and so of course trivial supermanifold is not the general case, but supermanifold, as I presented before, so this is related by the Bachelor theorem to fiber vector bundles. And then this is the general case of supermanifold. Yes? Okay, maybe your question is it possible to extend such a framework to foliations? I don't know, but this is a good question. Okay, okay. Yes. You mean for the supergeometry here? Okay, this is you mean this diffeomorphism acted? It's even. Yes, homomorphism. But maybe could be extendable. But I didn't look at this. For the moment, I need even. Yes. Okay. So let us see some example. The deformation quantization of superspaces by using the Heisenberg supergroup. Okay, I won't enter into details, and but just recall some steps. So consider a superspace of dimension 2mn with a symplectic superform. It means that for even coordinate, it's a symplectic form, and for odd coordinate, it's symmetric. Okay. Then the associated Heisenberg supergroup is just this space with one even Moore generator. And you have the group law here. This is the usual one, but here you have commuting and anti-commuting coordinates. One can compute the coadjuvant orbit of this, the generic coadjuvant orbit of this supergroup, and it's diffeomorphic to G quotiented by its center. So it's like you just remove this part. It's just R2mn. Okay. Then you can apply the Kirillov-Orbis method. Kirillov-Orbis method from this coadjuvant orbit produces a character, and then also Hilbert superspace. This is this Hilbert superspace L2 of Rmn, and we saw in the first part that what was this Hilbert superspace structure. So the scalar product and the operator G, one possible operator G, and we get also representation, an induced representation, and this representation, it turns out that it is super unitary, so unitary with respect to the super Hermitian scalar product. And this is just an extension of the Schrödinger representation to the graded setting. So with because you have odd coordinates. Okay, this is the first step. Then, by using another ingredient, not written here, but the quadrant orbit, it turns out that it has also a symmetric structure. So if you use the symmetric structure and this representation, you can construct, I don't enter into detail, you can construct a quantization map which takes a super function, L1 for example, and it gives a bounded operator on your Hilbert superspace. Okay? L1 of M is too small, so as Riffel did in its work on just the Heisenberg group, you can define oscillatory integral methods and extend this quantization map to the space B1 of M, which is just smooth super functions that are bounded with every derivative bounded. Okay? So you have now a nice quantization map from B1 to the bounded operators on this Hilbert superspace. Okay? And then it's possible to define the star product just by taking the symbol of the composition of omega of F1, omega of F2. And it defines an associative, it's obviously associative because of this structure. And you can compute this very explicitly, this star product, and it gives this expression. Okay, so remember that in Z1 you have commuting and even and odd variables. R is just the right action, but it's abelian, so there is it's not a problem. And here you have a kernel, which is just given by a cocycle of the supergroup, the Heisenberg supergroup. Okay, so this looks like the Moyal formula for the star product, but here you have even and odd coordinates. Okay, and here you have the Berezin integration. So this is very different. Formally, it's the same, but very different. Okay. Of course, it satisfies this identity, so compatibility with between the star product and the quantization map. It's constructed for this, and this B1 of M is a Fréchet associative algebra, and the star product is obviously also Heisenberg invariant. And if you want a maybe more explicit description of your algebra, it is just the Moyal algebra tensor with Clifford algebra. This was already well known at the formal level, but here we have a non-formal construction with some kernel. Okay. So this is an example of, you can construct, of course, a C-star superalgebra by taking completion for the operator norm of the quantization map. This is very easy, and with the complex conjugation. But okay, let us give also some other examples constructed from a universal deformation formula, not for C-star superalgebras, but here just for Fréchet algebras. Okay. So this is like in the Riffel's work, but here in the graded setting. So consider a Fréchet algebra. Okay. Then the star product can be extended to B1 of M, but valued in this algebra A. Okay. Just look at this formula. You take a function which is valued in A and another one, and you do the product in A. Okay. So this product extends, and then you consider an action of yes, I will write this. M, it's the coadjuvant orbit. I remember because I recall this because it will be useful. So you have an action of M on the algebra with a regularity axiom that I don't write here, and so it's a group action. Okay. Then, as usual, you can define the space of smooth vectors of this action. These are elements of the algebra for which the action is a smooth super function from M to A. n. Okay, a small result tells you that for any smooth vectors, this is not only in C infinity but in B1, so that you can use the star product and define your universal deformation formula. So for two elements of A infinity, you take just the star product in B1 A of M, and you evaluate it in the neutral element of your supergroup. And by using the expression that we wrote on for star theta, it gives you exactly this explicit expression. Yes? Sorry? It's star. It depends because this universal deformation formula is not compatible with the category of C-star algebra. That's the problem, and that's why we introduced C-star superalgebra. It's not compatible with involution. It's only compatible with superinvolutions. That was the problem, and okay, that's why we introduced C-star superalgebras, because first we try to this universal deformation formula. It defines the Fréchet algebra. And then we try to see if it is compatible with involutions and with the norms, and it was not. So we were very disappointed. But after we introduced, we saw that there was a Hilbert superspace structure behind, and we saw that by taking a superinvolution, it works. Yes. So that's why I think that C-star superalgebras are very designed for this super setting. Okay, so then other examples of notions concerning non-commutative supergeometry, quantum supergroup. Okay, quantum supergroup. We want to endorse a quantum supergroup with topology. A very satisfying theory would be to endorse with a C-star superalgebraic topology. But this is a work in progress, and this is not completed for the moment. So I propose here just to endorse with a Fréchet topology as a first step. So a Fréchet quantum supergroup should be a Z2 graded Fréchet space with a Hopf algebra structure compatible with the grading and with the topology, and also, of course, a tensor product compatible with the topology and the grading. Okay. Then there is an associated notion of representation, and I give here a very basic example. If you consider B1 of M, but without deformation, okay, commutative one. So it's a classical supergroup and not a quantum supergroup, because this product is commutative. This is a pointwise product. Okay, you have also units, and this is well known that the coproduct just encode here the group law. Okay, the group law, it is just the addition here. The co-unit encodes the neutral element, and the antipode encodes the inverse. Okay, so and it turns out that it satisfies all the axioms. This is very simple. Okay, but there are other non-trivial examples. So, for example, I constructed a class of solvable Fréchet quantum supergroups, and another of Fréchet quantum supergroups with supertotal subgroups. And very briefly, I will describe the first class as a concrete example of such a notion. Okay, this follows also the work of Riffel in the non-graded case, but it extends to the graded setting. So if you consider just an action of R on the symplectomorphism of this symplectic superspace, you have this supergroup, which is just a direct product with this group law. Okay. M is a subgroup of G prime, and M acts on the Fréchet algebra H given by this. Okay, so this is just the algebra of functions, but since we are dealing with some topology, we just take care about regularity with respect to each coordinate. So for the first coordinate, we just take C infinity, and for the second, for the other one, we take B1 regularity. Okay, and here this is a topological tensor product. There is no need to take care because this is a nuclear. And So this acts on a Fréchet algebra so that we can apply the universal deformation formula. So remember, okay, this is the action. So if you remember the expression of the universal deformation formula, okay, this is exactly this. And it turns out that endowed with the other standard structure, so the coproduct, the counit, and the antipode, you don't deform it, you just deform the product. It is a Fréchet quantum supergroup, and it's non-commutative. Okay, and why? Okay, it turns out that this identity is satisfied only with a special application of the universal deformation formula. If you remember, the universal deformation formula depended on some parameter theta, and then you have to take theta to be the first coordinate here. Otherwise, there is no compatibility condition between the coproduct and the star product. So this is strange. That was already the case in the non-graded setting, and this is also consistent in the graded setting. Okay. So this is a class of examples of quantum supergroups, and these are Fréchet quantum supergroups, and my hope is to extend them, as in the non-graded case, to the C-star setting. And the motivation is that one can introduce the operator W, okay, from the tensor product of the Hopf algebra to itself, defined by this very well-known formula. Okay, you can compute it explicitly and check that it's a continuous, with respect to the Fréchet topology, homogeneous of degree 0 operator, and it satisfies the pentagonal equation. Okay, this was not direct because here there is a graded tensor product, so you can obtain a sign here, but the sign here is 1. Okay, so this is nice. And so W is a kind of multiplicative unitary, but in this setting we will see that it is not unitary, but this is super unitary. Okay, so this operator is unitary on this Hilbert superspace, but with respect to the super Hermitian scalar product, and not with respect to the Hermitian positive definite one. Okay, and this is another motivation of introducing Hilbert superspaces, and this is also a sign that this setting of Fréchet quantum supergroup will be compatible with the C-star superalgebraic structure. Okay, and okay, so we have seen two categories of examples of non-commutative superspaces, of also the symmetries, so quantum supergroups, and now we arrive to another application concerning physics and quantum field theory. So, yes, the setting will be quantum field theory on the Moyal space. So the Moyal algebra, it is just the deformation quantization of R to M. And we have seen in the talk of Reimar and previously with the lectures of Harald that the phi star 4 theory on the Moyal space is not renormalizable because of the ultraviolet infrared mixing. But they exhibited, by adding some harmonic term, a renormalizable theory up to all orders in perturbation, and even it's a solvable model. Okay. Now, what I represent is not a proof of all of these properties, but just trying to interpret this harmonic term. Okay, give one possible interpretation of this harmonic term. Okay, you can rewrite exactly this action in this form because in the Moyal algebra the derivations are inner and exactly corresponding to this star commutator. Here you can rewrite this as a star anti-commutator, and you have commutators and anti-commutators of the same elements. So this is a sign. This is a sign that it should be possible to modelize this by using super algebra symmetries. And actually, it's possible if you consider the deformation quantization of R2M and by adding one odd coordinate. Okay? So we presented the star product in the second part of this. And what is the associated field now? It's a super function with with respect to x, which are the coordinate on R2M, and also with respect to psi. Okay. But now the problem is that you have 2 degrees of freedom. Okay. And now, if you want to construct an action to find in another way this action, you need a differential calculus associated to this superalgebra. And to modelize these derivations, these elements, you can take the following graded derivation. So you have this one for this one. And here, anti-commutator, it will arrive if you add this psi variable. Okay. And so, with this superalgebra and this differential calculus, you can construct an action. But first, there is this problem of 2 degrees of freedom. We need just 1 degree of freedom to find, again, the Grosse-Wilkenaar model. So there is a small identification, phi 1 equal to up to some constant to phi 0 to have. And mathematically, I don't know how to interpret this, but okay, we need this to find this Grosse-Wilkenaar model. And if you have this reduction of degree of freedom, then you can write the trace of your kinematic terms, okay, with all the derivations that we have considered here, okay, a mass term and a phi 4 term, okay. And what you find, because you can integrate over the psi variable, this is a Berezin integration, so this is possible to do a very explicit computation. You find exactly the Grosse-Wilkenaar model for the phi 0 field with this parameter. Okay. So this is a possible interpretation of this Grosse-Wilkenaar action. And then, of course, this is renormalizable. Okay, there is also this symmetry, this Langman-Szabo duality that exchange x and p. So this is, mathematically speaking, a symplectic Fourier transformation. And this, in this setting, it's just reformulated as a switch of grading. Okay, so you exchange 1 and psi. So this is very simple interpretation. And, okay, here, sorry. We have an algebra and an associated non-commutative differential calculus, so that you can consider the theory of connections and a gauge theory. And we computed the Yang-Mills, so this is Yang-Mills action for this differential calculus with Thierry Masson and Jean-Christophe Ouellet. And we find, by making this identification, we find additional terms, okay, which are analogs of harmonic terms here. Okay? And actually, this action was found before by Reimar, Jean-Christophe and me, and also independently by Harald Grosse and Michael Volgenand. This is, I think, maybe the most general action on for gauge theory on the module space. Okay? And what you find, what you find also, you can see that here, this is not a Lie algebra. It does not close. You have to add some other generators for the super derivations. And another generator is, for example, this. And this, it gives free X field minimally coupled to your gauge theory. So coupled in a way that you obtain also a harmonic term, okay, coupled with this anti-bracket and, of course, derivative coupled with Yang-Mills curvature. Okay, so we arrive to the conclusion. Okay, we have seen what was the philosophy of non-commutative supergeometry, so which concerns Z2-graded non-commutative algebras and some analytic objects for such framework. So Hilbert superspaces and C-star superalgebra. This is compatible with the first step, which is just classical supergeometry, okay, because we have examples. The Hilbert superspace is useful for an application, so for harmonic analysis of supergroups. Okay, for example, Kirilov's Orbis method and maybe classification of superunitary dual. Sorry. There are other examples of non-commutative superspaces given by deformation quantization of supergroups, and also their associated universal deformation formula that are compatible with the category of C-star superalgebra, but not with C-star algebras. Okay, we have also seen examples of Fréchet quantum supergroup, and the superunitarity of W is a sign that it should be possible to extend this to the C-star superalgebraic framework. And finally, we have seen an application to one possible interpretation of the renormalizable Grothe-Vulkenaer model. Okay, there are a lot of perspectives, of course. There are a lot of things to do. First, this is related to your question. Maybe find an abstract definition of C-star superalgebra, and this will be, I think, achieved by looking at the spectral theory of such objects. Then, to complete the to look at harmonic analysis for more general supergroups. Another perspective concerns, of course, C-star quantum supergroup, and the theory of R measure. It's hard to define because it's hard to define what is a state for C-star superalgebra, because you don't have the C-star property, you don't have a canonical notion of positiveness, so this is complicated. Then there are other perspectives concerning deformation quantization of other supergroups. So, for example, the orthosymplectic supergroup. And another perspective concerning physics would be to construct some other actions of quantum field theory on other non-commutative superspaces by using this interpretation. So, by adding some odd variables, and to look at their renormalizability. Thank you very much.
So you must have a notion of compact, super compact operator.
Yes, and
super spectral theory. How do you prove for Riemann, slope for Riemann?
Okay. Your first question was, sorry? Compact. Compactness, I think this is the same as for classical Hilbert spaces, because you just need the topology for compact operators. This was your question?
Yes.
Okay. And now the spectral theorem, okay, I don't know. For Stone-Feynman theorem, which concerns the decomposition of representations of the Heisenberg group, and here the Heisenberg supergroup, for the moment, we just proved it in the low dimension, and we expect that we can reconstruct by tensor product but this is not done for the moment in the general case. Okay, it means you have a symplectic superspace, okay, underlying your Heisenberg supergroup, and you have more freedom than in the non-bodied case, because you have a symplectic superform on this, and in symplectic superform you have essentially 1 on this, but here you have a metric, so you have the possibility of signature. Okay. For positive definite signature, this was already done by other people before us, but the complicated case was for mixed signature, and we did it. This works for this extends the previous work, and this is done in, for the moment, this. Okay, this is, but this was not. This was already done, so there is no problem with this. Positive definite, it fits by using. It was done by Varadarayan and collaborators by using some kind of. I think. Okay, you put some complex number here, and you take the positive definite scalar product, and you obtain representations that are unitary with respect to this strange. Okay, but for mixed signature, it does not work. And if you don't consider this scalar product, but okay, this one. In the positive definite signature case, it gives exactly this scalar product, but you have more freedom. Yes.